Be me, Melissa. 45, senior marketing director at a major consulting firm. Finally made it to the C-suite adjacent level after 20 years of grinding six-figure salary, corner office, respect from colleagues, should feel accomplished. But honestly, feeling pretty lonely lately. Been single for 3 years since my last relationship ended. Dating apps are a wasteland of immature men who can't handle a successful woman. Anyway, Thursday evening scrolling through my social media feed, see post from college acquaintance Sarah about her friend's wedding. Click through the photos out of curiosity. Groom looks completely ordinary, probably makes 60K tops. Based on his LinkedIn, bride is absolutely stunning. Looks like she stepped out of a magazine, naturally curious. So I dig deeper into the comments. Apparently she's from Ukraine. They met through some international dating thing. Feel this weird knot forming in my stomach. Keep scrolling and see more posts like this average-looking American. Guys with absolutely gorgeous foreign wives. One guy works at a hardware store. Wife is from Philippines and looks like a model. Another is a plumber. His wife from Colombia could be on magazine covers. Start doing some research because this is bothering me for reasons I can't articulate. Turns out this is becoming a huge trend. Ordinary American men with modest incomes finding traditional, feminine wives overseas. These women are described as family-oriented, supportive, appreciative. Meanwhile, here I am, accomplished and independent, can't find a decent man. Feel my blood pressure rising as I read more about this. These foreign women apparently don't care about splitting bills 50-50. They actually want to take care of their husbands and homes, which is obviously internalized misogyny, but whatever. Ryan walks into the kitchen where I'm stress eating. Leftover Thai food, my 22-year-old son just graduated college, living at home temporarily. Mom, you look like someone stole your parking. Spot. What's wrong? Show him my phone screen with the wedding photos. Look at this nonsense. These men are basically buying wives from developing countries. Ryan glances at the photos, shrugs. Looks like a normal wedding to me. She seems happy. Happy? Ryan, this is exploitation. These women are being taken advantage of by men who can't compete in the American dating market. Ryan's expression starts to change, getting that look he gets when he thinks I'm being ridiculous, or maybe these guys found women who actually appreciate them instead of treating them like ATMs with commitment issues. Feel my face getting hot, excuse me. I don't treat men like ATMs. I'm financially independent, which apparently threatens the male ego so much that they have to import wives from countries where women haven't been exposed to basic gender equality. Ryan sets down his water glass harder than necessary. Mum, you literally have a mental checklist for guys that includes their salary, education level, career, trajectory, and probably their credit score. That's called having standards, Ryan. I'm not going to settle for some deadbeat, but these guys you're complaining about aren't deadbeats. You just said yourself they have jobs. They're supporting families. You're mad because they found happiness with women who don't interrogate them about their life plans on the first date. Can't believe my own son is defending this regressive behavior. Ryan, this is about power dynamics. These relationships are inherently unequal because of economic disparities between countries. So let me get this straight. When you date guys who make less than you, that's empowering and progressive. But when other women date guys who make more than them, that's exploitation? Feel cornered by his logic, but he's missing the bigger picture. It's completely different. I'm choosing to date men regardless of their income because I don't need financial support. These women are dependent on their husbands for citizenship status and economic stability. Ryan laughs, but not in a good way, right? So your dating choices are enlightened and feminist, but their choices are just desperation. Have you considered that maybe these women genuinely prefer traditional gender roles? Traditional gender roles are a social construct designed to oppress women. Ryan, no woman naturally wants to be subservient to a man. Ryan's face is getting red now, voice getting louder. Holy shit, Mum, do you even hear yourself? You're literally saying that any woman who doesn't think exactly like you is either brainwashed or oppressed. How is that not incredibly condescending? Watch your language. And yes, women who haven't been exposed to feminist education often internalize patriarchal values. Feminist education? You mean the ideology that tells women they can only be happy if they're competing with men in every aspect of life? That staying home with kids is worthless unless you're also climbing a corporate ladder? This conversation is spiraling and I can feel my control slipping. Feminism is about choice, Ryan. Women should have the choice to pursue careers without being penalized for it. But apparently, they shouldn't have the choice to prioritize family over career without being called oppressed. You're only pro-choice when women choose what you approve of. Stand up from the table because I need to end this before he says something we'll both regret this conversation is over. You clearly don't understand the complexities of gender politics, and you clearly don't understand why you're single. That hits like a physical slapstorm out of the kitchen, and spend the rest of the evening researching this international dating phenomenon. The more I read, the angrier I get. Forums full of American men bragging about their submissive foreign wives, stories about women who cook elaborate meals, maintain perfect homes, never complain about emotional labor. These same men probably wouldn't last 5 minutes with an actual equal partner. Friday at work, can barely concentrate. Keep thinking about those wedding photos, and Ryan's accusations decide to bring this up with my colleague Jennifer. During lunch, Jen, have you noticed this trend of American men basically mail ordering wives from overseas? Jennifer looks uncomfortable. I mean, my brother Mark married a woman from Romania last year. She's actually really sweet. Of course, even Jennifer is defending this, but doesn't it bother you that these men are essentially shopping for wives in countries where women have fewer options? Melissa, I think you might be overthinking this. Mark met Diana through a legitimate dating site. They talked for months before meeting. She has a university degree. It's not like he bought her from a catalog, but the underlying dynamic is still problematic. These men can't handle dating American women who have been empowered by feminism, so they seek out women from more traditional societies. Jennifer puts down her salad fork, or maybe they want partners who actually want to be partners instead of competitors. Diana genuinely enjoys taking care of Mark, cooking for him, making their house a home. She chose that lifestyle because she's been conditioned by a patriarchal society to believe that's her purpose. Melissa, have you considered that maybe some women find fulfillment in traditional roles? That not every woman wants to work 60-hour weeks and fight for promotions? This is exactly the kind of internalized misogyny I'm talking about. Spend the weekend diving deeper into research. Discover online communities where these men share success stories. Apparently, these foreign wives are grateful, affectionate, feminine. They dress nicely for their husbands, maintain their appearance, create warm, home environments. Meanwhile, I haven't been on a decent date in 6 months. Every man I meet either feels threatened by my success or expects me to lower my standards. Sunday dinner. Ryan joins me in the kitchen while I'm preparing pasta. Still tension from our Thursday fight, but trying to keep things civil. Mom, I've been thinking about our conversation the other day. Ryan, I don't want to rehash this. We clearly have different perspectives. No, I want to understand your position better. Help me see why these relationships bother you so much. Appreciate that he's approaching this more calmly. Look, it's about equality. These men are seeking out women who won't challenge them, who will cater to their needs without expecting reciprocity. But what if these women genuinely want to take care of their families? What if they find satisfaction in traditional roles? Ryan, that's what centuries of patriarchal conditioning looks like. Women have been taught that their value comes from serving men. Ryan nods, but I can see him getting agitated again. Okay, but what about American women who choose traditional roles? Are they also victims of conditioning? In many cases, yes. The pressure to conform to traditional gender expectations is still very strong in our society. So basically, any woman who disagrees with your worldview is either brainwashed or oppressed. Here we go again. That's a gross oversimplification. Feminism is about recognizing how social structures limit women's choices. But you're literally limiting women's choices by saying their preferences are invalid if they don't align with feminist ideology. Feel my voice getting sharper. Ryan, you're a 22-year-old man. You have no idea what women face in terms of systemic oppression. And you're a 45-year-old woman who's so convinced of your own victimhood that you can't see how your attitude pushes people away. That's crossing a line. My attitude? Ryan, I refuse to apologize for having standards and expecting to be treated as an equal. Your standards are impossible. You want a guy who's successful, but not too successful, because then he might expect traditional gender roles. You want him to be ambitious, but also completely available for your emotional needs. You want him to pay for dates because you deserve to be courted, but also split everything. 50-50 because equality. Mouth drops open because where is this coming from? That is not... I never said any of those things. Mum, I've watched you date for years. I've heard your phone calls with friends complaining about every guy you meet. Nothing is ever good enough. Too short, too tall, too ambitious, not ambitious enough. Too traditional, too modern. Feel tears starting, but I'm too angry to cry. I have every right to be selective. I'm not going to settle for someone who doesn't meet my standards just to avoid being alone. But meanwhile, these supposedly inferior men with their traditional foreign wives are actually building happy families while you're alone in your corner office, wondering why nobody measures up. The room goes completely silent. Ryan looks shocked at what he just said, but he doesn't take it back. Maybe the problem isn't that American men can't handle strong women. Maybe the problem is that you've confused Being strong with being impossible to please. Storm out of the kitchen again, lock myself in my bedroom, and really start crying this time. Spend Monday at work, distracted and irritable, keep thinking about Ryan's words, impossible to please. Maybe I am selective, but that doesn't make me impossible. Tuesday evening, decide to try a new approach with online dating match with David, seems decent enough marketing manager at a mid-sized company, college educated, recently divorced. We text for a few days before meeting for coffee Thursday evening. David seems nice at first, asks good questions about my work, but then starts talking about his ex-wife. Sarah was great, but we just wanted different things. She was ready to settle down, start a family, focus on the home stuff. Already seeing red flags? What do you mean focus on the home stuff? You know, she wanted to go part-time after kids, make the house more of a priority. I supported that, but it put a lot of financial pressure on me. So you resented her for wanting to fulfill traditional gender expectations? David looks confused by my tone. No, I didn't resent her, but it was stressful being the sole provider. I guess I'm looking for more of a partnership now. Partnership meaning a woman who works full-time and also handles domestic responsibilities? Well, no, I mean, sharing responsibilities based on our strengths and preferences. Can already tell this isn't going anywhere. David, do you expect your partner to take your last name? I mean, I'd like that, but it's not a deal breaker. Why? Just trying to understand your expectations around traditional gender roles. The conversation continues downhill from there. David seems increasingly uncomfortable with my questions about emotional labor and domestic equity. By the end of coffee, we're both ready to leave Friday morning. Jennifer corners me at the coffee machine. How was your date last night? Disappointing. Another man who wants a 1950s housewife with a 2024 salary. Melissa, can I ask you something honestly? Nod because Jennifer's usually reasonable. Do you actually want to be in a relationship, or do you want to prove a point about gender politics? Taken aback by the directness. Of course I want to be in a relationship, I just refuse to compromise my values. But maybe the guys you're meeting aren't asking you to compromise your values. Maybe they just want to feel wanted and appreciated. I can appreciate someone without sacrificing my independence. But do you appreciate them? Because from what you've told me about your dates, you spend most of your time analyzing their potential for sexism instead of getting to know them as people. This feels like another attack on protecting myself from wasting time on men who won't respect my equality. Melissa, equality doesn't mean keeping score of every interaction. Sometimes relationships work because people complement each other, not because they're identical. Weekend arrives, and I'm still processing Jennifer's words. Decide to do more research on this foreign wife phenomenon. Maybe if I understand it better, I can articulate why it's problematic. Discover forums where American men discuss their experiences, stories about wives who greet them at the door with smiles, women who express genuine gratitude for their husband's efforts, wives who maintain their appearance and femininity, couples who seem to have clear, comfortable role divisions. The more I read, the more confused and angry I become. These relationships seem functional, but they're built on outdated gender expectations. Sunday dinner, Ryan's in an unusually good mood, tells me he's been talking to a girl from his college, thinking about asking her out. What's she like? Really sweet, studies engineering, wants to work in renewable energy, but she also loves cooking and talks about wanting kids someday. Alarm bells immediately. Ryan, be careful that you're not looking for someone to take care of you instead of an equal partner. His mood shifts instantly. Mom, why can't you just be happy that I might have found someone I connect with? I am happy. I just want you to build healthy relationship patterns. Healthy. According to who, your definition of healthy seems to involve constant conflict and negotiation about who's more oppressed. That's not fair. I believe in relationships based on mutual respect and equality. But you don't respect anyone who defines equality differently than you do. Here we go again. Ryan, equality has an actual meaning. It's not subjective. Is it equal when you expect men to prove they're not sexist before you'll give them a chance? Is it equal when you assume traditional women are oppressed and modern women are enlightened? Feeling defensive again. I don't assume anything. I recognize patterns of behavior that reinforce patriarchal structures. Mom, you've been single for 3 years. In that time, I've watched you go on maybe 20 dates. Not one of those men was good enough because they all failed some invisible test you never explained to them. I explained my values clearly to all of them. You interrogated them about their views on feminism. On first dates. Who does that? Voice getting louder. Now I'm not going to waste my time on men who don't share my fundamental beliefs about gender equality. But meanwhile, guys who supposedly share none of your beliefs are building happy marriages with women who appreciate them. Those marriages are based on inequality and dependency. According to you. Have you actually talked to any of these couples? Have you asked these women if they feel oppressed? Realize I haven't. Which weakens my argument I don't need to interview victims of false consciousness to understand systemic oppression. Ryan throws his hands up. False consciousness. Jesus Christ, Mom, do you hear yourself? Any woman who disagrees with you has false consciousness. Any man who wants appreciation instead of constant criticism is a sexist. Any relationship that doesn't look exactly like your ideal is oppressive. Feel tears coming again, but push through, Ryan. I've spent my entire adult life fighting for women's equality. I've experienced workplace discrimination, dating double standards, societal pressure to be perfect in every role. I'm not going to pretend those things don't exist. I'm not asking you to pretend anything doesn't exist. I'm asking you to consider that maybe your approach to relationships is self-defeating. My approach is based on self-respect and refusing to settle. Your approach is based on assuming the worst about every man you meet and testing them instead of connecting with them. Stand up, because this is getting too intense. I'm done having this conversation. You clearly don't understand the realities of dating as a successful woman in a patriarchal society. And you clearly don't understand why those supposedly inferior men with their traditional wives are happier than you are. That stops me cold. What did you say? Ryan's face is red with frustration. I said, maybe there's a reason those guys found happiness while you're alone. Maybe it's not because they settled for oppressed women. Maybe it's because they approached relationships with appreciation instead of suspicion. Are you suggesting I should lower my standards? I'm suggesting you should examine whether your standards are actually about finding a good partner or about proving you're better than other women. Feel like I've been slapped. How dare you suggest that I think I'm better than other women? Everything I do is about advancing women's equality. Everything you do is about proving you're right. About gender roles, about relationships, about what women should want. You can't stand that some women might be happy living differently than you do. Those women have been conditioned to accept less. Or maybe you've been conditioned to expect more than any human being can provide. We're both shouting now. Ryan, I expect basic respect and equality. That's not unreasonable. You expect men to apologize for their gender while simultaneously proving they're worthy of your attention. You expect them to be traditional when it benefits you and progressive when it serves your ideology. You expect perfect adherence to your worldview without any compromise or accommodation. That's not... Mom. When's the last time you did something nice for a man you were dating without keeping score? When's the last time you expressed genuine appreciation instead of pointing out what they could do better? Can't immediately answer because I'm trying to remember. When's the last time you asked a date about his dreams instead of his position on reproductive rights? When's the last time you focused on connecting with someone instead of evaluating them? Still can't answer. That's what those foreign wives do, that you can't. They approach relationships with gratitude and affection instead of suspicion and demands. They approach relationships from positions of dependence and vulnerability, and you approach them from positions of superiority and judgment. Which one sounds more appealing to you? This conversation has gone completely off the rails, Ryan. I can't believe you're defending regressive gender dynamics. I'm not defending anything. I'm trying to explain why you're alone while supposedly inferior men have found happiness. Because they've found women who will accept inequality. Because they've found women who want to make them happy instead of constantly proving points. Feel completely defeated. Lock myself in my room again and cry harder than I have in years. Spend the rest of Sunday questioning everything Monday at work. Completely distracted. Keep thinking about Ryan's accusations. Am I really impossible to please? Do I really approach dates as evaluations instead of connections? Tuesday, Jennifer asks about my weekend. Had another fight with Ryan about gender politics. What happened? This time? Tell her about our argument. Jennifer listens without interrupting Melissa. Can I share something personal? Nod before I met Tom. I was a lot like you. Successful, independent, very focused on equality in relationships. I went on tons of dates where I spent the whole time analyzing whether the guy was feminist enough. This hits close to home. What changed? I realized I was so focused on protecting myself from potential sexism that I never actually connected with anyone. Tom wasn't perfect according to my feminist checklist, but he was kind, genuine, and he made me laugh. Did you have to compromise your values? I had to compromise my need to control everything. Tom does things differently than I would, but that doesn't make him wrong. He shows love through actions more than words. He's more traditional in some ways, but he respects my career and supports my ambitions. Feel a pang of longing, but don't you worry about losing yourself in the relationship. Melissa, I didn't lose. Myself. I found someone who makes me want to be the best version of myself. There's a difference between compromising your values and compromising your need to be right about everything. That evening, decide to scroll through those forums again. But this time, instead of looking for evidence of oppression, try to understand what these relationships actually look like. Read stories about couples who genuinely seem to care for each other. Men who work hard to provide for their families. Women who create warm, loving homes. Clear role divisions that both partners embrace. Expressions of mutual appreciation and gratitude. The more I read with an open mind, the more I realized these aren't stories of oppression. They're stories of people who found compatible partners and built functional relationships. While I've been fighting for theoretical equality, they've been creating actual happiness Wednesday evening. Ryan comes home from his date with the engineering student. He's practically glowing. How was dinner? Amazing. Maya is incredible. She cooked for me, which I know you probably think is problematic, but she loves cooking and wanted to share something she's passionate about. Feel the familiar urge to point out gender dynamics, but bite my tongue. Did you have a good time? The best. She's brilliant, funny, ambitious about her career, but also talks about wanting to create a beautiful home and raise children who feel loved and secure. Can see how happy he is. She sounds wonderful. Ryan looks surprised by my response. Really? You're not going to analyze whether her desire to nurture a family represents internalized patriarchy? That stings, because it's exactly what I was thinking. I want you to be happy, Ryan. If she makes you happy, that's what matters. Mom, can I ask you something? Nod. Do you think Dad left because you couldn't stop trying to improve him? Feel like the wind's been knocked out of me. Ryan looks immediately regretful. I'm sorry, that was too far. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe. That's exactly what happened. Remember the constant arguments with Ryan's father about emotional labor and domestic equity. The way I corrected his language around gender issues, my frustration. When he didn't meet my expectations for feminist allyship, how I made him feel like he could never do anything right. Maybe you're not wrong. Ryan sits down beside me. Mom, you're an amazing woman. You're successful, intelligent, strong. But you've turned relationships into political battlegrounds instead of partnerships. Feel more tears coming. I just wanted to be treated as an equal, but you treated everyone as potential enemies instead of potential partners. Thursday. Decide to try a different approach to dating match with Michael on a dating app. Instead of interrogating him about his views on feminism, ask about his hobbies. Instead of analyzing his responses for signs of sexism, listen to what he's actually saying. He's a teacher, coaches youth soccer, loves hiking, divorced, has joint custody of his daughter. When he suggests coffee, I suggest a local trail. Instead, Saturday morning, meet Michael at the trailhead. He brings good coffee and homemade muffins instead of seeing this as him trying to impress me. Appreciate the thoughtfulness during our hike. He talks about his daughter with genuine love. Mentions how his ex-wife is a good mother, even though their marriage didn't work. Speaks respectfully about the women in his life when he offers to carry my water bottle. Instead of declining on principle, say thank you when he holds branches back on the trail. Instead of insisting I can handle it myself, smile and walk through. For the first time in years, I focus on enjoying someone's company instead of evaluating their feminist credentials. Michael is kind, funny, attentive, tells me I look nice, asks thoughtful questions about my work, expresses genuine admiration for my career. Accomplishments doesn't seem threatened by my success or try to minimize it, but also doesn't apologize for. Being masculine or traditional in some ways end of the hike, he asks if I'd like to have dinner sometime. Instead of my usual response about taking things slow, hear myself saying yes. Drive home feeling lighter than I have in months. Sunday dinner. Ryan asks about my date. It was actually really nice. Michael seems like a good man. Ryan raises an eyebrow. No red flags? No problematic attitudes about gender roles? Laugh despite myself. I didn't spend the whole time looking for red flags. I just enjoyed his company. And how did that work out? Better than my usual approach. Ryan grins. Maybe there's hope for you yet, Mom? Wednesday. Second date with Michael. Dinner at a nice restaurant he chose. He opens doors, pulls out my chair, orders wine. Old me would have bristled at these traditional gestures. New me recognizes them as expressions of care and respect. Conversation flows naturally. He asks about my work challenges without trying to solve them for me. Shares stories about his students and his daughter talks about his ex-wife without bitterness. When the check comes, he insists on paying instead of arguing about splitting it. Thank him graciously. Walking to our cars, he tells me he'd like to see me again. Instead of playing games or maintaining artificial distance, tell him I'd like that too Friday evening. Having dinner with Jennifer, tell her about my dates with Michael. You seem different, happier. I think I am. I stopped approaching dating like a political campaign and started approaching it like dating. What changed your mind? Ryan, mostly, and seeing how miserable I was making myself and everyone around me. It takes courage to change patterns that deeply ingrained. Think about those forum posts about foreign wives realize they weren't succeeding because they were oppressed. They were succeeding because they approached relationships with appreciation instead of suspicion, because they wanted to make their partners happy, instead of constantly testing them because they understood that partnership sometimes means complementing each other instead of competing. Saturday night, third date with Michael, he invites me to his place for dinner, cooks for me, which he clearly enjoys doing. Instead of analyzing the gender dynamics of him cooking for me, appreciate the effort and care. Dinner is delicious, conversation is easy. Tells me about his marriage and divorce without making his ex-wife the villain, talks about wanting to find a real partnership with someone who wants to build a life together. When he reaches for my hand across the table, don't pull away for the first time in years, allow myself to be vulnerable with a man. Sunday morning, Ryan notices my good mood. Things going well with the teacher, really well. I think I might actually like him. And he hasn't failed any feminist purity tests? I stopped administering those. Wise decision. You seem happier than you've been in years. Realize he's right. Also realize that my previous approach to relationships was pushing away exactly the kind of men who could make me happy. Men who wanted partners, not adversaries. Men who wanted appreciation, not constant criticism. Men who wanted to care for and protect the women in their lives. Thursday, Jennifer asks how things are progressing with Michael. He's meeting Ryan this weekend. That's a big step. I'm nervous but excited. I think Ryan will like him. What changed for you, Melissa? You seem like a different person. Think about that question. I realized that those men finding happiness with foreign wives weren't settling for oppressed women. They were finding women who approached relationships the way I should have been all along. Which is how? With gratitude instead of demands. With appreciation instead of criticism. With the goal of building something together instead of proving points about equality. Saturday evening, Michael meets Ryan. Watch them talk about soccer, teaching, Ryan's girlfriend Maya. Michael asks thoughtful questions, shows genuine interest, treats Ryan with respect without trying to be his friend. After Michael leaves, Ryan gives his approval. I like him, Mom. He seems like a good man. Even though he held doors for me and insisted on paying for dinner? Ryan laughs especially because of that. He's showing you that he values you enough to take care of you. 6 weeks later, Michael and I are exclusive. He's met all my friends. I've met his daughter. Relationship feels easy. In a way I'd forgotten was possible. No constant negotiations about who pays for what. No arguments about emotional labor distribution. No tests or evaluations or political litmus tests. Just two people who enjoy each other's company and want to build something together. Realize that those traditional foreign wives weren't victims of false consciousness. They understood something I had to learn the hard way. That relationships work best when both people focus on making each other happy instead of keeping score. That complementary roles can be empowering instead of oppressive. That appreciation and gratitude create stronger bonds than criticism and demands. Tuesday evening, having dinner with Ryan and Maya, watch them interact with obvious affection and mutual respect. Maya cooks, Ryan cleans up. She defers to his expertise about financial planning. He defers to hers about their home renovation clear role divisions that they both embrace, constant expressions of appreciation for each other's contributions, exactly the kind of relationship I would have criticized a year ago. Now I can see how happy and functional they are, together. Maya, can I ask you something personal? Of course. Do you ever feel like you're sacrificing your independence by taking on more traditional roles? Maya and Ryan exchange a glance. Melissa, I think I'm more myself in this relationship than I've ever been. Ryan supports my career completely, but he also appreciates when I take care of our home. I feel valued for everything I bring to our partnership, not just my job. And you don't feel pressure to prove your equality? I don't need to prove anything. We both know what we contribute. Ryan works harder at his job because he knows I'm creating a beautiful home for us. I put extra effort into our domestic life because I know he's working to build our future. Feel a pang of recognition. This is what I'd been fighting against, but seeing their happiness, their mutual appreciation, their easy partnership, realize I'd confused equality with identical roles, confused independence with isolation, confused strength with inflexibility. Friday evening, Michael tells me he's falling in love with me. Instead of panicking about vulnerability or analyzing the power dynamics, tell him I'm falling in love with him too. 6 months later, we're talking about moving in together. Year later, we're engaged. Realize that Ryan was right about everything. Those men finding happiness with foreign wives weren't exploiting oppressed women. They were building partnerships with women who understood what I had to learn, that love isn't a competition, that relationships work best when both people focus on giving instead of taking, that traditional dynamics can be empowering when they're chosen freely, that appreciation and gratitude create stronger bonds than criticism and demands. Looking back, I see how my insufferable feminist attitudes pushed away every decent man who tried to get close, how my constant testing and evaluation made relationships feel like job interviews, how my need to prove points about gender equality destroyed any possibility of actual connection. Those foreign wives succeeded where I failed because they approached love with open hearts instead of closed minds, because they wanted to build partnerships instead of wage ideological battles, because they understood that being cherished and protected isn't oppression. It's one of the most beautiful things two people can create together.